if we do anything that involves a vote at all, then we will be doing a roll call vote, just so you know. But anyway, it being 7 o'clock, I'm going to start this meeting of the Finance Committee. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel, and it is being conducted remotely. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread, and all town facilities are currently closed to the public. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town website on the COVID-19 Information Center page, accessed through the town manager's webpage, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. I will ask that if you do have a public comment that you would like to make and you have a problem making it online, although I don't see anybody here who's not a member, then I don't suppose I will go ahead and say it, and I'll say it again later when we get to the public comment point or halfway through the meeting, is I would invite people to email your public comment so we can read it at the end of the meeting. And you can email that to tburchield@lunenburgonline.com, and please put public comment in the subject. This meeting is being recorded, and there's some attendees participating by telephone. And accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you if you're on through Zoom. So take care not to screen share your computer. I think I don't know if I took screen share to myself, but anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording that you may not want shared across Lunenburg. Before we get to the first agenda item, I'm going to ask you to, when I call the meeting to order, I'm going to ask you to speak your name. And before you make any comment, also speak your name, and that has more to do with recording in the meeting minutes. But since we do our own minutes, I'm not sure how important that is. But please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Again, since we do our own, I'm not sure how important that is. But for any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Again, for items with public comment, after members have spoken, I can afford public comment as follows. The chair will ask first members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. And once I have a list of all the public commentators, I will call each by name. And then what I will do when I ask for people to make public comment is ask them to raise their hand. And again, any vote taken during this meeting will be taken by roll call. Any questions about any of that? No questions about any of that, so I'm going to move. Michelle, why are you raising your hand? Because you're muted? Michelle, can you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I wasn't able to unmute myself before. It said you had me muted, so I just wanted to get myself unmuted.
Okay. All right, with that, we don't have public comment at the beginning of the agenda, mostly because everything is kind of a moving target. I figured we would, all right, that is not the agenda. So I lost the agenda already. I pulled it up on purpose. All right, well, there were only 4 things on the agenda, and one of them was, does anybody have any committee reports? Mm,
Terry,
seeing none.
Terry, I will have one at the end, but on the agenda we had review budget calendar, and perhaps we should go to that first. Just
Okay, so I was,
being
okay, so
more
you do
pressing
have
thing.
one to make.
Yeah,
so
I got it here. Yeah.
I will be happy to do that then. Okay. Then let's go ahead with, before we review the budget calendar, why don't we just do a
Announcements.
status? Well, actually, I just did the announcements. That was all the announcements
Right.
there were. It really was that this meeting is going to be an interesting exercise. Unless somebody else does have an announcement, other than, like everything's closed, you can't get anywhere, and there is toilet paper at Jeff. All right, so anyway, we're going through the agenda. Let's take a shot at the, do you want, Heather, I'll leave this to you. Do you want to start with the update, or do you want to start with the budget calendar? Look at, because I'm going to assume for the budget calendar discussions, and okay, we'll start with that, and maybe you can address this right off the top. John and I were talking that basically, in terms of the departments, none of their needs are changing just because the financial picture has changed. So what are you looking for them to present if we have them? Is there a reason to bring them back?
No, I don't believe there'd be a reason to bring any particular department back. There were a couple that we still hadn't met with. So sewer, we have the administration budget, which is the general government budget, and debt schedule as well. And unclassified. So those are the remaining items. But I would say if we can back towards like our normal schedule, those will be before the public hearing. And between now and then, it will be a review of what changes there are in the revenues and what that means for the expenditure side.
Okay, so you would like us to continue to just follow the schedule that's on there, but not necessarily have, except for those 3 departmental hearings at all.
Yeah, unless
But you still want us to meet every week.
Yes. So unless we're going along and there's a particular issue that comes up that you want to meet with a department or for the school or.
Okay.
All right.
Is that okay with folks?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not.
Peter?
I'm not sure I clearly understand. Is there a new schedule that's been published, or are we? I'm not following. Are we going to go back and address each department individually, but not with necessarily a full-blown presentation for each department?
Okay, so I'm going to take it that this means that I did not send out an updated schedule.
Or I might not have
I thought
downloaded it.
it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember getting an updated schedule. Yes.
Okay, I missed it. I apologize.
Missed it too, but I'll catch up.
Okay. But yeah, but that one was developed after the town manager identified the town meeting date and then walked it back to the public hearing, which is
Okay.
now going to be when's that?
I apologize. I'm looking at it now. I missed it.
13.
Okay.
The public hearing is May 7th.
Okay. So, all right. So basically, then, can we do a public hearing this way
So
if we have to?
anyone that, we have up to 1,000 participants on Zoom, so we have the capacity to have a public hearing, I think.
Okay.
Could allow for public participation at that public hearing.
Okay.
Right now, we're limited through May 4th by the governor's order. Is that the?
Yes.
Is that
As
the
of
deal?
right now, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then why don't we go ahead then on to the budget discussion?
Great. So I just wanted to go over kind of conceptually how I was going to approach the revamping of the fiscal 21 budget. And so starting with revenue projections, as this is going to be the most challenging part of the budget, because I don't believe we have anything close to historical data on what is going to be happening with the economy and how that will impact our revenues. For new growth, I expect that to be reduced even further. And I have asked the assessors through RRG, our private firm that does assessing services, and our building department to start looking at that impact. For state aid, that is entirely up in the air right now for fiscal 21. I attended a briefing. We have weekly briefings now with the Lieutenant Governor and Sean Cronin, who's from the Division of Local Services, NEMA, and DPH, Department of Public Health. And at this last Tuesday meeting, the Commissioner of Division of Local Services reported that they are meeting next week, the Secretary of Administration and Finance, with the chairs of, not the chairs, but House and Senate Ways and Means Committees to discuss local aid, so state aid. So right now we have no projection on the impact of state aid. What I would probably approach with state aid at this moment in time, before we have, I don't know how long that figure, they'll release a baseline figure for state aid, is to approach it with the fiscal 20 state aid number. For local receipts, that also is, as we've discussed at budget discussions and every year, that it's an elastic revenue. And so this is a perfect scenario of the impact on local receipts. So I'm thankful that we already budget conservatively for our local receipts. That's one positive in our favor, but I would still be looking to pull those back because there will be an impact, obviously, on such things as meals tax and other local receipts like building permits and things like that. I also expect that we'll see a decline in the percentage of taxes collected, and we'll be looking at historical data from 2008 and 2009. And even at that point, I would also compare it the unemployment rates. They're going to be, what I'm seeing is going to be much higher than that era. So we don't have a lot to go on there. So that will, the approach will be to be a conservative estimate for our revenues. And as far as expenditures, my first pass at the budget will be to postpone any new positions or additional hours for employees. And I'll be looking at postponing some of the projects on the capital plan so that we can use less of the tax revenues on capital that can be reallocated to the operating budget, so that where the real needs exist for our operational costs and providing the services to our residents that they're going to rely heavily, I think, on in the upcoming times. So overall, again, the foundation of the budget will be built on a conservative revenue estimate, and this will allow us to see after the first quarter of fiscal 21 what that impact is on tax revenues and other items like meals tax.
Does anyone have any questions? Karen, I can't tell if you had something to add.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about any of that? John?
I just wanted to cautiously say that I had pursued some of the new growth figures in history. Went back to actually 2003, but I focused on 2008. 2008 was the last time that I can recall we had a recession. Now I know it's a poor analogy here, but in 2008, during the year of the recession, new growth declined from the previous year. And what was interesting is, according to my records, my numbers, which came from the Division of Local Services, they declined in 2009, 2010, and only started to recover in 2011. But 2011, I believe, was not at the rate of 2008 yet. So there was, in fact, a sustained reduction. I'm looking through the numbers carefully, so this is just provisional, but at least you know that. And I'm kind of reluctant to share it too much because I don't want two sets of competing numbers out. That's what I
Okay.
got.
Okay, thanks, John. Peter? Peter, you're muted.
Yeah,
Apologies. I have a comment related to John's comment, but I also have a few questions for the town manager. I completely support a conservative approach here because we don't know a lot and we don't know what we don't know. My read on this, and I'm not an economist, but I pay pretty close attention, is that this is unprecedented and the economic reverberations are completely unpredictable. Yes, we can take some direction from 2003 and 2008, but different affected sectors of the economy. One was a banking crisis. This is a services crisis. It's just incredibly different in terms of how it's going to reverberate on state and local revenues. My question for the town manager is, obviously this stuff is going to come together as all budget figures do, in kind of a staggered way. You mentioned that there's some meetings at the state level next week. Do you have any idea in terms of the timeline of when when you're going to get some indication so that we can look at this in terms of, numbers that we can kick around?
Through the chair.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So unfortunately, no. I had contacted Sean Cronin last week with questions because, so our conference call last week with the state, there were questions about, the current fiscal year, if state aid our monthly payments were going to continue as they normally would. And the answer was yes. So we're fine through fiscal 20 as far as depending on those monthly payments. After that meeting, that I still had remaining questions, so I emailed him about, is the state using forecasting figures? Can you share those so they'll help inform us? What about other types of reimbursable grants? Are there delays in such things as Chapter 90? Because we submit for reimbursement at the end of the year. So those types of questions. And at that point, they hadn't started any formal forecasting. So I expect, next week when they meet, that's going to be the beginning of the process. They're in a similar position. They're going to, or the much worse, to start from scratch as far as projection. So I don't anticipate, we have 1 month before the public hearing to put together a foundation.
My understanding is that in some cases the rules have changed a little bit. Like there were some provisions in one of the federal relief acts around the state rules for budgeting, and I believe in one of the governor's orders or some of the legislation there were also some municipal changes in terms of balanced budgets and that sort of thing. Do you have a synopsis in terms of what rules are different from in terms of what applies to us from what they were a few months ago?
Yeah. So there's a bill before, it's House Bill 4580, and that goes into the new, or some flexibility for municipal budgets. So that would allow for such things as adopting a 1/12 budget, similar to what regional school districts are allowed to do. Or encumbrances, stabilization fund, free cash. That's all in that bill, and I do not believe as of today that passed. So.
Okay, and I had also seen that there was some federal aid as part of the most recent federal legislation. I had seen, I believe, Senator Tran or Representative Hay had actually posted an earmarked dollar amount for Fitchburg relative to one of these bills, and I'm wondering if there's an equivalent amount for Lunenburg, or did we even make the list?
I haven't heard from our legislators about that, so I can try to find out that information.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the best we can do at this point. Again, because I think they're going to wait until they see how this is going to be playing out mid-April to see if we actually do crest or if this is going to push out further into the summer.
Yeah, but there was an
that could
actual
create a problem.
dollar value to municipal aid that had been parsed.
That they
some
earmarked.
degree.
Okay.
And I don't know how it was parsed or what the details were, but as I said, I did see a number for Fitchburg, which I found interesting. It wasn't a substantial amount, and I'm sure for us proportionally it won't be a lot, but I was curious.
Good question, though. Yeah.
So my last question is really for you, Terry, and this is related to a conversation topic that happened pre-crisis, but is probably more relevant now than it was even then, which is, have we had any success in reaching out to our state delegation for some commentary with respect to the education bill, and now obviously what they're leaning to and what their hopes and dreams are in terms of stabilizing their local municipal budgets?
We haven't. I know that the last time that we discussed it was to try to reach out with both the Board of Selectmen and us, because I was not having any success personally. So we can try again to see if we can have something come in. I think at this point, because Jen Benson was leaving. All right,
Yeah, we have a vacancy, but we still have Stephen Hay representing my precinct in Lunenburg, and Senator Tran, who I believe is on the Ways and Means Commission, and several other committees.
No, you're right. No. I think, yeah, and that might actually be worth a discussion, and having them in. So I guess I would put the question out as to whether we can go ahead and invite them. I mean, I can reach out individually to try to invite either I think someone from Senator Tran's office would make themselves available for a meeting, whether we get the senator or not. I think that's why I wanted to go with the Board of Selectmen as well, because basically we were getting the bench, which may be sufficient, but I'm not sure that really would. Who knows? It might be, because if the legislative aid is on top of this more so than even the reps are sometimes. So, but I don't know, Heather, is that something that the Board of Selectmen would be interested in doing, or no? And then I'll just reach out individually from the Finance Committee again. You'll ask them.
One of their upcoming meetings.
Okay, thank you. And then that would be good to bring them in to talk about all of that. Okay.
Harry, did my hand go up?
I don't know. Where is your hand?
Maybe you
there
don't
it is.
see it.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It did, yes.
I was just going to say, if a description of what we're looking for could be created, I do have a direct contact or direct access to Senator Tran, so I can at least get it in front of him.
And you'd be certainly since you have direct contact, then you're more than you're more than welcome to invite him.
Okay.
I'd be happy to put together a couple of paragraphs, Dave, and forward it to you via email, and we can enter it into the record at the next meeting.
Okay, that would work great. I just I want to make sure that I, pass on the correct information and word it in a way that the board wants it to be worded.
Well, I can't speak for the board. I'm only speaking for me, but I think you understand the crux of my request, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I have found a couple
no,
of times here that if you go directly to the person you're trying to get to, if you know they're going to be appearing at a location,
Yeah.
that has worked well for me in 2 instances.
I can
Good,
also,
because the email didn't really work, so.
Right. I did the same thing, Facebook messages, email messages, and then I went direct face to face or as close as possible without being too close. But I do have access to Senator Tran.
Very good. Okay, then we'll try to get that in before the end of, I'm, at this point, I'm sorry, John.
I just wanted to loop back to thank Peter for his comments about the analogy, the historical data. 'Cause we're totally on the same page with respect to that. It's sort of perhaps a context, but it's certainly not directly on point. Thanks a lot, Peter.
Thank you for your work.
It's fun.
Well, Heather's glad somebody's having fun with it. Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Well, expensive fun. It's an indulgence. You
All
know,
right.
life is.
all right, Heather, is there more to report, or do you want to just go into the, is there an update, a financial update for for this year?
I did want to tell the
Just
board
what you've already said.
that on March 23rd, I had sent all departments to institute a spending and hiring freeze until further notice. And so that's on all non-essential expenditures.
Okay.
Do we have any unexpected drain in any areas as a result of this situation?
There will be expenses related to, so our cleaning expenses, obviously, supplies. Right now, police and fire seem to be operating normally. But that's all being tracked. I've asked, not Karen, Amanda Moore, she's the public safety coordinator, the police. So through Chief Marino, because she has experience in dealing with FEMA reimbursements from the
Right.
ice storm. So she's going to be working with the fire public safety coordinator, Karen Weller, on tracking all those expenses and when we need to. So we wanted to get ahead of the game and make sure that we're ready when we need to submit reimbursement.
Right, and that was the reason why the town declared a state of emergency. Is that correct? Was to be able to stay on top of the tracking all of the issues that were related to it.
Part of the reason, yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to assume that the public safety building is all set with PPE, or we're going to be having all kinds of huge bills for the replacement of personal protection equipment.
They seem to be have a stock right now of, that's not to say that will change. And they are accepting donations. If anyone know of anybody, and that was part of my public service announcement, that they're looking for accepting donations.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Heather or Karen? John?
Just one, I am assuming the hiring freeze includes the plan we had been on track to do, which is add one police officer per year for the next, for several years. That has been, there's moratorium on that as well.
So that would be part of my recommendation at this moment for fiscal 21 is to pull back any new positions that were part of the original recommended budget. But it really, the spending and hiring freeze was for fiscal 20 to make sure we could get our cash analysis and projections, make sure we had enough to float us through the year. And, Karen and the treasurer collector have worked on that. And today I received that from them. So we'll be discussing that more. And it looks positive that we'll be fine through the remainder of the year.
And a follow-up question, if I may. Was this one of the years where an addition of a police officer would trigger a new squad car, an additional squad car or not? I can't remember.
I'd have to look back at the capital plan.
Okay.
I seem to
Thanks.
recall it did.
I thought so too,
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah, I think that this was the third year.
Yep.
But, well, yeah, we'll know for sure. Dave?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Heather, in the 2020 fiscal budget, have we already filled those positions or we have not for fire and police?
Yes, they're getting, they were set to go to the academy, and the other position for fire is undergoing the paramedic training.
Right. Okay. So they were already on payroll before the hiring freeze went in. Okay. So we got this year's increase. It's next year that's affected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Whoops.
And if I can add though to that, the exception to the hiring freeze was for public safety. So if in the event during this whole situation, they're going to need additional personnel, I want, it's necessary that they're able to do that.
Yes, that makes total sense to me.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing on that. Okay. Then basically, when we meet next week, your intention is to come in with a first go at the revenues or at the expenditures, or both.
Like both.
Going to keep. Okay, so just going to try to take a first run. Okay. Then with that, I'm assuming that is your update and that is a discussion of the budget. And so I would then go back to Peter. This would be a time to bring up your committee report.
Yeah, the school committee met last week on the 25th in a Zoom meeting, much like this. I did attend that meeting. They also instituted a hiring freeze at that meeting, similar to what Heather just described. But the most substantial discussion that evening was about continuing pay and benefits for hourly staff that are principally paid out of revolving funds. So in particular, cafeteria workers and extended day personnel. And the committee voted to continue to pay them basically through the, I believe through the emergency, but yeah, so through April 7th actually. And there was the projected number to bring it to the governor's date in May was $138,179 to bring all of those hourly employees and keep them whole through the declared emergency as it exists right now. So the school committee voted to do that. They did not need to make a budget line transfer at this point because there is ample funds in the revolving funds right now. And the business director stated that there will be sufficient leftover money and cost savings from not operating during the current period to be able to support that. So it won't require any town level budgetary action, but the school committee will likely invoke some line item transfers to pay for that when the time comes.
Dave?
If I may, through you, a quick question to Heather. I would assume that the school committee is also tracking expenses that may be reimbursable down the road. Sounds like some of these dollar amounts might be, even though there is budgetary money available for them, because it's extenuating circumstances that that money's being spent, right? Especially if the revolving accounts run out.
Heather?
That message went out to all departments.
Okay.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, Madam, through Chairperson, through you to Peter, any idea of how much savings may accrue because of the lack of operations of the buses and the lack of heating to the schools, or at least heating the schools to, say, 70 degrees?
Yeah, I didn't even think of the heating issue. You're probably right, but the business manager, Mr. Cassidy, didn't go into any details on any of that. He did mention that there are some contractual obligations that lawyers are already involved in, I believe, or at least that was the insinuation with the busing company, and a lot of that needs to be negotiated and figured out. But there were certainly no dollar values floated at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that I'm sorry, John. That there are discussions with this involving the state, involving DESE about the payment of transportation companies, and whether or not they will be paying contracts to support workers if the company is paying the workers. If the company is laying the workers off, there may be a different pushback on it. But I know that that's one of the big concerns is transportation companies. And again, if they've laid off their workers, that presents a different case than if they're continuing to pay their workers through the emergency. I'm sorry, John, I interrupted you.
No, that's quite all right. I think I talked over you at least once. Peter, again, is there any idea of when we could get some clarity on the savings, or is that just TBD?
I think it's TBD right now. In fact, I'm not even sure that the school committee has a meeting scheduled right now, because the guidance that they're operating on is, it has to be a pretty compelling reason to have a meeting at this point. So I think they're operating on an ad hoc basis. I'm sure when they have something to report, they'll make that information known, but I don't have any insight.
Thank you.
Peter, I think I saw a meeting scheduled for Saturday morning
Really?
on the calendar.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was unaware of that.
Oh, they must be getting some feedback. Again, like
There must be some
Department of
information.
the Department of Education is having they're having meetings every week, whether it's the commissioner talking about finances, or talking about transportation, or talking about food services, or talking about any one of a number of areas of interest for the schools, and just trying to get a handle on what the superintendents are looking for help, and what they can offer for help. And I'm sorry, Dave, was that why you had your hand raised? I just lowered it, so I didn't know if you had it raised before.
I think it stayed up after the question earlier.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm not looking at their agenda, but the other thing that could very well be, and this is purely speculation, is there may be some policy issues that they need to deal with as well. They're moving to as best described, a modified distance learning program, at least for my two kids, starting next week. So they're moving from a purely enrichment offering that was available online for the last few weeks to something more formalized starting next week, and they may need to act on something related to that too. So not really a financial matter at this point, but everybody's operating.
No, but it could be down the road. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why it could be down the road is that it puts them on the hook for special ed services.
Yeah.
So,
could be too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, there's so many moving pieces in all of this that, Heather, I'm happy you have the job you have, and I don't.
Go on.
For a job right now.
And then, you know, that, yeah, between you and Karen, I'm sure that you're keep dancing as fast as you can to try to come up with the numbers that we're going to need to go into town meeting. But in terms of the warrant articles, is there a reason why we don't already have those? Given that you guys were close to
I can send
announcing them?
the draft.
Okay, so if we get the draft, at least we'll have some sense. I know that all of the numbers are changing. I think it was just when I heard I was you were up to double I. Were you up to that? Then that meant that there were a lot. So I wanted to at least have people have a chance to get a look at it. So if we can get a look at it early, there's a new date for the warrant articles to close?
No.
No. Okay, so it is closed. So yeah, then it would be great to have the draft. That would be super. Thank you.
You're welcome. Send it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. Could you repeat that?
Just the understanding that some will be removed.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Is there anything else at this point that anyone has questions about or wants to be sure that is on the agenda for next week? 7 o'clock is still good. So 7 o'clock on the 9th, we will gather again.
All right.
Okay. Then with that, I don't think that we have any meeting minutes, but I didn't put it on the thing anyway.
Well, that's why I didn't send you any.
Yeah, and actually, I think I'm also supposed to state at the beginning of the meeting that there were no documents that were shared with anybody. So if there are documents to be shared for next week, just I guess if they're out before next week, I'll be able to make an announcement at the beginning of the meeting if there are shared documents at all. Then with that, does anybody have a public comment from the committee? No public comments. Okay, and we have no public, so that's good. And
Wow.
with that, it's so different that, well, it's also, we have no food. That was worse.
I was wondering if we were going to get a delivery from your mother, you know, maybe just on our doorsteps or something before the meeting.
She is so bored that she would. She would absolutely. She would put all your addresses into her GPS and drive around. All right. So with that, then I would be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved. Yeah. I'll second.
Do I have a
John,
second?
you can move. I'll second.
Okay. So John made the motion. Peter seconded. Then we'll do a roll call vote. Dave.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Michelle.
Hi.
Jay, you're muted.
Aye.
Okay, Jay.
Thank you.
And I for myself. All right. Thank you very much, folks, and we'll see you next week.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much, hon. Don't we though? That won't last forever, but where is she anyway? Yeah, I think I logged out. I know I turned it off. Maggie, you are such a good girl.
She deserves a treat.